There is a humanitarian crisis unfolding in the state of California in front of our eyes. At least 79 people have been killed in the Camp Fire in Northern California, now by far the most deadly and destructive fire in state history. Nearly 700 people are still missing. In total, nearly 13,000 homes have been burned down, which means tens of thousands of people have nowhere to go. Some of them have ended up at a Walmart, Chico. Hundreds of people displaced by the fire are now sheltering in a tent city with rain on the way. It's a wake-up call not only for California, but for the entire country. We are now in the era of permanent climate disaster, and we better start getting prepared. Joining me now, May Bouvi, who's the co-founder and executive director of 350.org, an organization that pushes for action to fight climate change, and Eric Klinenberg, director of NYU's Institute for Public Knowledge, author of the book Palaces for the People, which came out in September. Eric, you've done a lot of work on disaster preparedness, emergency preparedness, and I look at California and I think to myself, this is a big, rich country, and there are hundreds, if not thousands of people nowhere to go. We should be able to figure this out.
We're the best protected people in the world. We have the best resources for dealing with these kinds of situations, and yet we act as if we have this will not to know about the danger that's all around us. If it was any other security threat of this magnitude, we would be doing everything possible to prevent it, and the fact that we're not doing it around the climate threat tells us something that's very meaningful about who we are right now.
May, a lot of people have been talking about this as a kind of before and after moment for the state of California and consciousness of what the real tangible consequences of the era we've entered into now are.
Well, I'm speaking to you from California. This is the first day I haven't worn my gas mask because the air quality is one of the worst places in the world right now. And California is a state that's done a tremendous amount to lead on this issue, but we're seeing that what we've done about climate change so far has been insufficient. And these fires are scary, and the wide-ranging impact of these fires is scary, but we're not without knowledge about the solutions to this problem. And we have to do everything we can to support the people most impacted, particularly the most vulnerable among us. But we have to look at the long term. And for that, we know who's responsible for climate change, and we know the solutions are going to be good for all of us.
You know, May made that point about the gas mask, and I got to say, it's this like straight sci-fi dystopic vision of the future. You've got the wealthiest square footage in all of the world, arguably in Silicon Valley, with people wearing masks, because no matter how much money you're making as an engineer or a venture capitalist, it doesn't help if the air quality is terrible.
That's right. So we know that climate change is going to affect the most vulnerable people in places, but it's like the Titanic. We're all in that boat.
That's right.
So some people are going to go down first, but everyone is in it. And look, we're sitting in Manhattan, and once upon a time, I think people in Manhattan thought that they were safe and protected, and Sandy eviscerated that fantasy. The fantasy is eviscerated in Miami, and city after city is going to experience this kind of situation. The real issue is when we will finally muster the political will to do what we all know is inevitable. We're going to have to shift away from fossil fuels and start to find renewable sources of energy before it's too late.
May, you know, there's this remarkable map. You know, there are some people on the East Coast who had woken up, I think, yesterday and said to themselves, like, man, am I imagining things because I'm watching the news too much, or am I crazy, or is the air quality bad? And that is a smoke plume that has blown across the continental U.S. and was actually in the mid-Atlantic yesterday, which I think speaks to the point about how inescapable this is going to be for everyone.
Yes, and this does, as we were discussing, affect everyone, but it doesn't affect everyone equally.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about the United States. Climate disasters are striking in every single country, and the efforts to respond to them are similarly global in nature. But there is good news. This week, actually, there's been tremendous pressure from young people, part of the Sunrise Movement, pushing members of Congress on a Green New Deal. This is incredibly exciting. It's the kind of ambitious policy making we need. And we have to be able to turn to the solutions, because we cannot fight climate change one disaster at a time.
There's also this collective action problem, right? I mean, this is the thing that I think people break up on, which is that, like, California is probably doing more than any other state in the union on this, right? I mean, they've cut emissions while they've lowered their unemployment rate and increased economic growth. They're doing it. But that's, you know, just California doing it is not enough.
Right, and it feels bad if you're in New York and you're doing it and they're not doing it in New Jersey or Pennsylvania,
and
let alone China or Russia. But look, I think what we're hearing now is right. There is a rising generation of people in this country and around the world that recognizes we can't do business as usual anymore. We need some fundamental change. And what I see teaching on a college campus, when I talk to younger people generally, is a real passion for dealing with this. It's an emerging emergency social issue, and they get it. And the problem is we can't leave them a problem that is insurmountable. And so we have this window for action, and I think it's right. We're seeing a younger, rising generation inspire us to do the right thing.
There's also as I look at the images of destruction, Mayor, people talk about a carbon tax or cap and trade or whatever variety of ways in which we would deal with carbon pollution, and they say, well, it's expensive, but there's 13,000 structures in California that are burned to the ground. Like, people are paying out hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, in insurance claims.
Well, and let's not forget who the enemy is here, right? We're dealing with the richest industry on earth who knew they were causing this problem and lied about it. And we're not facing a shortage of resources in dealing with this problem if we look at that industry. And there's an increasing suite of lawsuits that are actually holding big oil accountable in cities across the world. So we have to look at that piece of the picture as well. All
right, May Bouvi and Eric Klinenberg, thanks for joining me. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.